It's Turkey Week, and with no buys on the slate, we have a ton of lineup decisions to make. Today, we are continuing our Love-Hate series as we look into 3 players I'm trying to start everywhere and 3 players I'm looking to sit. But before we dig in, head over to 4from4.com and use promo code YouTube to get yourself 25% off any subscription plan. Start Baker Mayfield. The bye week and the return of Mike Evans breathed new life into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, snapping their 4-game losing streak with a much-needed victory over the New York Giants in Week 12. While the Giants are far from a playoff-caliber team, the win highlighted signs of revitalization for the Bucs as they aim to stay in postseason contention. With a favorable matchup ahead, including this Week 13 matchup against the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay's offense is primed for a strong finish to the season. The Panthers have been a dream matchup for opposing offenses, surrendering a league-worst 30.9 points per game and generating a league-low 25.5% pressure rate on opposing quarterbacks. This aligns perfectly with the Buccaneers' strengths, as their offensive line has allowed a league-best 21.9% pressure rate. With Baker Mayfield thriving under clean conditions, this matchup sets up beautifully for Tampa Bay's key fantasy contributors. Mayfield is a locked-in QB1 option this week, with his clean pocket dominance elevating the potential for big performances from his supporting cast. Mike Evans should improve on his modest 60% snap rate from Week 12 as he shakes off the rust from his hamstring injury. Tight end Cade Otton is also a viable streaming option, and both Bucky Irving and Rashad White can deliver solid fantasy outputs against the soft Panthers defense. Fantasy managers should confidently start their Bucs in Week 11 as they aim to capitalize on this favorable matchup. Start Marvin Harrison Jr. It's clear that Marvin Harrison's rookie season has had its share of growing pains, marked by occasional miscommunications with Kyler Murray. While Harrison's talent has been on display with 6 touchdowns and 2 massive performances in Week 2 and Week 8, his 54.5% catch rate and 7 games under 50 receiving yards highlight some inconsistencies as the QB wide receiver duo works to establish chemistry. However, the potential upside is far too significant to overlook, especially in a favorable Week 13 matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings secondary has been one of the softest in the league against wide receivers, allowing an average of 189.4 receiving yards and 14.7 receptions per game to the position, of which are the second highest marks in the NFL. This provides an excellent opportunity for Harrison to showcase his explosive ability and for Murray to lean on his rookie playmaker against a defense that has struggled to contain opposing pass catchers. Even with the occasional hiccup, Harrison's skill set and role in the Cardinals' offense make him a must-play option in this matchup. His knack for big games and red zone usage give him a high ceiling, while the Vikings' defense vulnerabilities raise his floor. Fantasy managers should confidently start Harrison as a fringe wide receiver 2 or 3 with significant upside in Week 13, as the pieces are in place for another breakout performance. Start Chuba Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks may be trending toward a larger role as he settles into the Panthers' backfield, but it's far too early to hit the panic button on Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard remains a vital piece of Carolina's offense, particularly in the passing game, where he has thrived since Bryce Young's return under center. Over that stretch, Hubbard has averaged 4 targets per game, showcasing his reliability as a checkdown option and an offense that struggles to push the ball downfield consistently. This volume provides a solid floor for fantasy managers, particularly in PPR formats. Week 13 presents a favorable matchup for Hubbard as the Panthers take on the aforementioned Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay has allowed the most receptions to opposing running backs this season, highlighting a clear vulnerability that the Panthers can exploit. Given the lack of reliable playmakers in Carolina's offense, Hubbard's role as a pass catcher should remain steady, providing him with the opportunities to rack up fantasy points even if Brooks begins to see more carries. While Hubbard may no longer be the undisputed workhorse in the backfield, his involvement in high-value situations keeps him fantasy relevant. And with a favorable matchup and continued trust from Bryce Young, Hubbard is still a viable option for fantasy managers looking to secure reliable production in Week 13 and possibly beyond. Sit Drake May. May's rookie campaign has been filled with promise since he took over as the Patriots starter in Week 6, but his potential continues to be overshadowed by the struggles of a dreadful offensive line. Despite his talent, May remains a quarterback to target when streaming defenses, as his protection woes have left him consistently vulnerable. In Week 12, May absorbed his 67th pressure and 12th sack of just the past month against the relentless Miami Dolphins defense, further cementing the Patriots as the league's most sieve-like pass-blocking unit. The numbers are staggering. New England's league-high 41.2% pressure rate allowed is not only the worst in the NFL, but it also stands 3.6% higher than the next closest team, the Houston Texans. For perspective, that gap is equivalent to the difference between the 31st ranked Texans and the 22nd ranked team in this metric. Simply put, May is operating behind a historically poor offensive line, making him an inviting target for opposing pass rushes. Moreover, May won't find much relief as a scrambler, as the Colts have allowed just 21.4 rushing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks, the ninth lowest rate in the league. Enter the resurgent Indianapolis Colts. With star interior lineman DeForest Buckner back in the lineup since Week 8, the Colts defense has taken a significant leap forward. Over the past month, they've climbed to 12th in pressure rate and 10th in sacks per game, compared to ranking 25th and 23rd in those same categories during the season's first 7 weeks. May should remain on benches while the Colts DST should be fired up where available. Sit Keenan Allen. Through this point in the season, 102 wide receivers has seen at least 25 targets, and Keenan Allen's usage paints a troubling picture for fantasy managers hoping for big plays. Allen ranks at 69th in average depth of target and an even more disappointing 93rd in yards per catch. These numbers are more in line with the profile of a tight end rather than a dynamic, game-breaking wide receiver. What's more concerning is that Allen hasn't compensated for his shallow role with meaningful yards after the catch. His 3.2 yak per reception ranks just 77th among those eligible wideouts, suggesting he's not breaking tackles or making defenders miss on short dump-offs. This limits his ability to create explosive plays, leaving his fantasy output largely touchdown dependent. While Allen can still serve as a reliable wide receiver 4 option, maybe a wide receiver 3 option, especially in PPR formats where his volume holds value, his lack of big play potential caps his upside. Without finding the end zone, he's unlikely to deliver anything resembling a game-winning performance for fantasy managers. For those in need of more upside during this crucial stretch of the fantasy season, it might be time to start turning our attention to Roma Dunze. Sit Najee Harris. Harris is trending in the wrong direction ahead of Week 13, as several factors point to a limited ceiling and significant risks to his fantasy outlook. The Pittsburgh Steelers' offensive line has been a major hindrance all season, ranking 18th in adjusted line yards and a woeful 30th in running back yards before contact. This lack of push up front has consistently put Harris in difficult situations, forcing him to generate yards after contact to remain productive, and that's just not something Harris typically does. Unfortunately, this week's matchup against the stout Cincinnati Bengals run defense doesn't offer much relief. The Bengals rank 10th in the league in limiting running backs to just 4 yards per carry and are 7th in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position, further complicating Harris's path to success. On top of the tough matchup, Harris's workload has been trending in the wrong direction since Pittsburgh's Week 9 bye. His snap rate has dropped from 58.2% before the bye to 48.1% after, with similar declines in rush attempt share and route participation. Meanwhile, Jaylen Warren's role has expanded significantly as he's averaging 15 opportunities per game since the bye, compared to just 9.16 before it. Warren's efficiency and explosiveness has earned him a larger slice of the backfield workload, leaving Harris to split touches in an offense that already struggles to create running back room. With a bad to possibly poor offensive line, a pass funnel defense, and a questionable workload, Harris is a risky play in Week 13 and should be benched for higher upside options.